Hey everyone! Around the globe in film and television studios of all sizes, virtual production is revolutionizing pipelines from previs to final pixels, and we're celebrating its success with Virtual Production Week. President of Lucasfilm Kathleen Kennedy joined Epic Games' Miles Perkins in a look back at Kathleen's remarkably prolific career in film production, which includes groundbreaking VFX titles such as Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Jurassic Park, and Twister. They discussed the changes she has witnessed over her 40-year tenure and the opportunities and challenges that virtual production now presents to the industry. In addition to that incredible fireside, we have loads of presentations from industry leaders. Halon Entertainment supervisors Ryan McCoy and Grant Olin went inside the visualization process of Free Guy and how they made the film's blockbuster metaverse a cinematic reality. InViz shared their implementation of Unreal Engine throughout their pipeline. The session focused on InViz's virtual camera system, Arena, and illustrates the collaborative visualization it enables in a virtual space by exploring two key scenes from The Midnight Sky. The co-founders of Proxy show how they are using cutting-edge virtual production techniques on films like The Suicide Squad for action design and tech viz, facilitating a collaborative sandbox that enables every department to be involved in the creative process whenever they want to be. And a special behind-the-scenes presentation produced by RealFX features never-before-seen footage from the new Netflix animated series, Supergiant Robot Brothers. Hear from Academy Award-winning director Mark Andrews on how cutting-edge virtual production in Unreal Engine has transformed every phase of the production process, from early visualization to final renders, on this high-end action comedy show. On ambitious productions like The Mandalorian, the third floor has developed a host of technologies and techniques to block and preview shots and characters, explore ideas, and synchronize virtual assets, real environments, lighting setups, and shooting plans. Their session showcased how Unreal Engine can be leveraged to communicate creative vision, make informed choices, and accelerate cinematic storytelling. Check out all of these incredible sessions and the exciting Virtual Production Week content at unrealengine.com/VP-week. After 3 months, we are pleased to announce the winners of our first Shorts India program, a challenge designed to empower both aspiring and established creators to push their real-time VFX and animation projects even further. See the great work from these winners on the feed. Adventure vehicle maker Rivian is all about firsts. That's why its R1T model, the world's first commercially available electric pickup truck, has rolled off the production line with a state-of-the-art HMI designed, developed, and deployed in Unreal Engine. Head to the feed to learn more. First up in our spotlights is Forbidden Prologue, a short cinematic from Lukastic. While just a teaser for a larger sci-fi project to come, we're excited to see where the journey will take us. Head to the forums to let them know what you think. Here before you is the upcoming survival co-op base builder Derelicts, in development by Romain P. Years after an ancient and enigmatic mechanism flooded Earth with radiation, you and your team are tasked with investigating the source of the incident. Build, craft, and explore alone or with friends in this hostile, mysterious wasteland using the power of electricity and water to survive. Wishlist Derelicts on Steam. And last up is a beautiful portrait lighting study from Jennifer Del Menashe. She worked to meticulously recreate the lighting setups from a variety of film and game references. Head to her ArtStation page to check them all out. Thanks for watching this week's News and Community Spotlight. Hi, and welcome to Inside Unreal, a weekly show where we learn, explore, and celebrate everything Unreal. I'm your host, Amanda. Co-hosting with me is the lovely Tina.
Hello.
And we're excited to welcome two award-winning artists with us today in celebration of Virtual Production Week. So we have Elizabeth Ito, an animation artist that's worked on you were the Netflix animation show, City of Ghosts, and loads of other fantastic content.
Thank you. Yeah, I like
And
City of Ghosts, and also I worked on Adventure Time for a really long time and stuff like that.
it's awesome. Such great CV there. And then Corey, welcome. I'm sure our community is very familiar with your work. Babylon, Xanadu, and you've had a long history of mega projects as well. So
Yeah, I did back in the early days working on movies and TV shows, music videos and commercials, all that kind of jazz. So did a lot in my day.
no big deal. Um,
No big deal.
but we're really excited to welcome you both. So for those that don't know, it's virtual production week here for Unreal Engine. We've released loads of content over the week. If you haven't been following it, we had a fireside with Kathleen Kennedy and Miles Perkins. Loads of great sessions from Real Effects and Halon Entertainment, Proxy. Do go check them out. It's unrealengine.com/VP-week. Lots of great stuff there. But today we're talking about animation and virtual production with small teams. So, Corey, you're a one-man band, and Elizabeth, there's only a handful of you working at any given time, right? But before we super dive in, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves? I know we've kind of covered a little bit of what you've worked on, but dig in a little bit about your projects and what you're doing now. So, Elizabeth, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. The project that I'm working on now that I'll probably talk about today is Mall Stories, and that's with Chromosphere. Before that, last year I came out with a show called City of Ghosts that was on Netflix, and I've just sort of like I work in animation, but I would say that like my style is pretty different from the traditional industry style, and it usually involves kind of like I don't know, just like smaller teams of people, shorter projects, and usually it kind of involves animating things made to look like they're happening in the real world. So it's been really great, I think, to kind of like work in these small teams to make these projects. Oh, and another project that I worked on was Yuki 7 with Chromosphere, which is another thing where they were dabbling in Unreal and kind of trying to see how it could work for their projects.
We actually you shared with us a little teaser of Mall Stories, so I think we should go ahead and share that so folks have some context for what we're going to be talking about today.
It's an Asian fusion restaurant, like a buffet style, where you get to pick your own vegetables, meats, and we put a lot of noodles and delicious sauce on it and cooking it on a big, flat, round grill. And it's really fresh and delicious. My dad is 72 now, so time to retire. And I mean, it's like any Asian father, he doesn't really show a lot of emotion, no excitement. It's either like, hey, do you want to do it or do you not want to do it? And once I told him that I'll do it, he just said, okay, then you do it.
I cannot get enough of like him spying from the background and looking up. It's such a cute little touch. The cutest.
Thank you.
Absolutely love it. Thank you for that. Corey, you want to tell us a little bit about your background and what you're working on these days?
Sure. Yeah. So I come from a long career in visual effects for TV and movies, and I've always kind of worked for, I think, smaller shops back in the day. And probably the biggest movie I ever worked on was Minority Report. That was a lot of fun, a lot of futuristic kind of sci-fi stuff. And then from there, I got into augmented reality, probably 2012-ish, when it was like early iPad stuff. And I really fell in love with that because it's kind of this, blending of reality and virtual. So me and my friend were doing a lot of cinematic stuff there. And then that kind of evolved into VR. So when the DK1 came out, it was just like both of us were mind blown, and we kind of just shifted all of our stuff into VR. And that's sort of where we also got into Unreal. And through AR, that's when I got into the real-time stuff in general, just like game engines. So it was a bit of a transition from the offline world into real time. But was really awesome. We did a lot of VR projects just on our own for fun. And that sort of led us to making Babylon, which is this crazy mortal babies battle each other in an arena game that sadly is kind of like on ice right now. It's game development, as everybody at Epic knows, is really freaking hard. And we put our souls into this thing. We built something pretty amazing, but it's just, to get it out of the atmosphere, it didn't quite happen. But in that process, I kind of developed some techniques for doing motion capture that led to what I'm doing now, which is a project called Xanadu, and it's basically like my alter ego virtual character creating his own empire, vlog style on YouTube. So it's a big experiment. It's hard to define it more than that because it's constantly evolving, and I'm just trying different things in different episodes and seeing where it all kind of is going to end up going. But it's been pretty awesome, and I think you guys might have a little clip to show.
Yeah,
so
introduce
you'll have an idea.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Blue, and this is my alter ego, Corey. And together we have a YouTube show called Xanadu, starring yours truly.
Hello, what about me?
And it's all about building my virtual empire.
Well, all I see is Corey doing all the work and you having all the fun.
I think building an empire is all fun.
For you, absolutely.
Anyways, you guys have a good spotlight interview. We're gonna go punk some astronauts on the space station for our next TikTok video. Blue, out. All right, cut.
Awesome. He's so fun. So what's your inspiration for creating Blue and the whole Xanadu series?
I think, it was kind of brewing in the background for several years. Like once I figured out this motion capture stuff for our game and started to sort of embody our baby characters, which were wild and crazy, they naturally sort of brought out the 12-year-old inside of me. It was just a lot of fun. And so I kept thinking, on the side, it might be fun to do sort of an alter ego thing where it's not tied to anything. It's sort of a way for me to express myself differently. And so over a couple of years, I just was kind of collecting ideas or images or character, references that I thought would be cool. And then sort of as Babylon was tapering off, I just decided this is the most exciting thing that I could get into. And so I just dove into it and started kind of figuring out the structure and kind of worked with a lot of great artists that I worked with in the game for the game to help me build sort of the ship, design the character, and get some of the initial props made. And then, just kind of got it going early last year in terms of started doing episodes, putting them out in the summertime.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was curious what pipeline updates you had to make from what you were doing before into the transition with Xanadu.
Funny, I feel like I developed a lot of the foundations for the pipeline I'm using now during Babylon. But mostly doing the cinematic stuff. So that was the thing I always gravitated towards. Not being a hardcore gamer myself, it was all the cinematic components to the game world that I was attracted to. So I initially just started creating sort of teasers and trailers and cinematic content with our babies. And in that process, I figured out sort of the skeletal workflow that I'm using now. I think once I started to scale it, because I also did a couple Baby Yoda inspired short films in between these two things, which helped me
so
further.
good.
They were right. They were so fun. Somebody came into the office one day and was they saw the face capture stuff. They're like, dude, you should do Baby Yoda. And I was like, yeah, I should do Baby Yoda. He'd be super fun. And I did. And so I spent, 6 months probably just kind of going from one little Baby Yoda skit to another. And in that process, I think I really started to define how I could write something really quick, do motion capture, and then block out the scene and kind of put it together, which I started to do with Babylon. And then now I've just been refining it. Like almost every episode, I'll do a little bit differently. The way I nest sequences and all the sort of, there's a lot of complexity involved with the motion capture, the timing, the scenes, the cameras and lighting and everything. So always trying to evolve that, the, you know, unique sort of components of each episode. But yeah, I think it hasn't really evolved that much. It's just, again, it's in the details of how I sort of rejigger layers and things like that.
So coming from that, so, you know, Corey, you sort of have had an established pipeline. You've been using Unreal Engine for a long time. Elizabeth, this is the first project, or you dabbled a little previously, right, in Unreal, and this is new. So what's it been like using Unreal Engine, and will you kind of go over what your process is as a wholly different kind of project from Xanadu?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, yeah, definitely brand new, completely brand new to Unreal, or Unreal is brand new to me. I think like I was trying to think about like the reasons for working in it for me, and like the things that have been really great about being able to work with a small group of people on this project. I think like one thing that's in common with sort of what Corey was just saying was like you just have access to be able to experiment with like all this stuff that typically I think in projects that I've worked on before, like animation is usually so like each job is really separate, and with this it feels like there's a lot of overlap with what you get to kind of do with it, and also too it allows you to sort of build it's like we were working kind of concurrently, like building an environment at the same time as I was sort of storyboarding this idea, because like for the benefit of having it in like a mall is sort of like how you know, once in a while on a TV show you'll have like an episode where everything happens in one place, like it happens in like the same place, and they usually call that like a bottle episode. So I was thinking like this is really like I tried to come up with something that was kind of like a bottle series where you could do a bunch of stories in the same environment and utilize that environment, like not only just for like the end product of like having this film happen in there, but like for me, storyboarding, I think one of the most tedious things can be doing like drawing backgrounds, honestly, for me, because I'm just more of like a character person. I'm more of like a quick sketch person. So having the ability to like have a camera in the space that you're using for the project was just really kind of like really shifted the amount of work that I actually had to do to imagine where I was at for this story. So yeah, it's been really cool. Like at the beginning, we kind of talked about like doing things that I'm not even used to using something like Unreal for, like using it for writing or using it for yeah, just like planning things in a way that was so cool to kind of like think about a different approach, because a lot of things in animation really have a like a traditional structured way that it usually happens. And I think like to have a tool where you can expand that to be kind of done differently, it's always like really fun to experiment with that. It's been really fun for me.
Do you find yourself actually taking screenshots in it and using and drawing over them?
Yeah, I did that, and then for a while I was kind of trying to try out Praxinos. It's like a storyboarding thing that for the actual engine, so which was cool. It was interesting just to sort of like, I mean, for me, part of it was really just like the learning curve of like getting used to, I mean, like to like on a small scale, it's like even just getting used to key commands, because it's like I'm used to working on a Mac, so like I have different sort of like key commands ingrained into my brain, and then just like navigating around the space also took a little bit of time, just in general, for me to get used to.
So
Yeah,
Elizabeth,
I'm
I
actually
have a quick
curious.
question. We all three did at the same time.
So many.
Go, Corey.
So when you say you're doing writing in Unreal, is it that you're kind of like blocking out a scene early on during the writing process and seeing it helps you evolve the writing, or is it something different?
I think that's how it could work. It was just sort of like an option presented to me by Karen, who was like really helping guide the projects that I do with Chromosphere and help kind of Chromosphere out with like the projects they've been doing with Unreal. But she's sort of the one who brought it up, and it's like a really interesting idea. I think I was trying to like, yeah, like same as what you're sort of experiencing. I was really trying to wrap my head around like, what does that mean? Like, how do I write in it? So, like, to be completely honest, I don't know how to answer your question,
Okay.
but I did find it really cool, like the thought that it's kind of a tool I think that could bridge sort of like people who maybe like me, where they write, but they also have visuals that go with it. But then it could help somebody who only writes and maybe wants a way to sort of like bridge that deficit of like not having like a tool to like show somebody like without describing it, like what they're writing and what they're putting into their story.
Right. Gotcha.
All right, what'd you have,
Well,
Tina?
I'll take a crack at it. I was curious, what in particular led you to using Unreal for the development of your project? Was there just a particular project that you saw that you related to that you thought, oh, that might be an interesting program to work into, or did it just kind of naturally end up happening?
I'd seen Chromosphere working on Yuki, and I thought it was well, first of all, it was just totally foreign when I when I very first saw it, but like kind of like parallel to Unreal, I've just really been interested in like these virtual production things that have been, I don't know, just like kind of developing by leaps and bounds, where people don't have to like go like have a set and an exotic location and stuff actually built. Like they can make a movie like where, yeah, like the entire set is green essentially, but like you have a screen that's showing you this imaginary environment that people are acting in technically. And so that was just like, it's just really fascinating. Like I think like as an animation person, I'm like, that's so cool. So like this really like brings kind of like live action and animation like a lot more, like they overlap more with stuff like this. So I think like my previous project, City of Ghosts, it was, going out and taking pictures and animating on top of that and making it look like a set. So I think in Unreal, I saw the opportunity of like, oh, well, maybe like then we have a lot more control over that set afterwards. Like if we didn't get like a photo of that angle or that thing, we can just adjust it because we have the set already built. So I think like that's kind of where I started, like thinking about how it's like it's just really cool to have that amount of control.
How about you, Corey?
How about me? What led me to use the
Yeah.
Unreal Engine?
Mhm.
It was actually forced upon me
Oh,
in a funny way. Kriba, who's sort of the
Wonderful.
genius coder, co-founder of the company that I started, or that we started, he comes into the office one day and it's like, dude, we're switching to Unreal. And I was like, no way. And he's like, dude, we have to. And it was the day that you guys announced that the source code was free and open. So this is early, I don't know, 4 point, I don't even know what, 4.12 or something. And so for him and for both of us, it was like a superpower. Instantly, he had source code access. And so if we ran into any walls, he could just kind of code around them. And so it took a little getting used to. But the thing that was always the gold nugget of Unreal is the viewport. Like the rendering was so amazing. Like I was instantly hooked on it. But there was definitely a little bit of a learning curve involved just with the interface and stuff. But yeah, that was once we started that. I think Sense of Peso is the name of a VR project, which was our first Unreal project that we decided to we created just to kind of like get our UE4, feet wet. So that's the story.
That's awesome. On that note, like you're talking about getting up to speed, for you, Elizabeth, new to Unreal Engine, what resources are you leaning on to get familiar with the engine? And then I would be curious to toss that to Corey to see, like, you're on the bleeding edge of some of this technology, and is it just a lot of experimentation or collaboration with other people, and where, if so? So, Elizabeth first, and then Corey.
Yeah, I mean, mine has really just been like, honestly, leaning on everyone at Chromosphere and on Karen and Rob, if there's anything where I'm like, how do we do this? Do you guys have tools for this? And they're always like, they've always been really helpful about kind of knowing about current things being developed, where it might be of use to us, but also, it's not like you have to use that. It's just like a tool kind of like at that you can access. And honestly, it's just been like, I think just being comfortable with like working through those novice feelings and just sort of reminding myself like, well, like it's cool to learn this new thing, and if I don't understand something, like I'll ask Kevin the question, or then if Kevin doesn't know, he'll ask his team the question. So I think it's really just like being comfortable with asking questions to whoever might be able to answer them. And even if they're like really small to like stupid sounding questions or things like that, it's still nice to be able to kind of like ask them.
Yeah, that's kind of similar to me, actually. I leaned on Akrima quite a bit, even though we were both learning at the same time. He just, when it came to the blueprints and the coding and a lot of the complexity, he kind of helped me, or was just like the perfect person to ask because he could figure it out pretty quickly. Because in the early days when I started using it, I think the community was a lot smaller and there wasn't a lot of sort of YouTube videos and just not a lot of stuff online to dig into. So I think in that process, I kind of just learned how to figure things out myself or with him. And that's still kind of the same today. I still run into all kinds of troubleshooting things and trying to figure out how to do stuff. Definitely, I'll jump on Google real quick. If I don't find something, then I'll just keep hacking away at it until I figure it out. And hopefully it doesn't take too long, but we all know sometimes, one thing can suddenly turn into a day or two. So that's just the nature. But
as a small team, how do you maintain that drive and focus, right? At larger companies, you're bound by deadlines or bound by certain project dates and things like that. But how do you hold yourselves accountable? I know we have a lot of indie teams that are like, it's just me, or it's just me and my pal, and like, development can keep going and keep going. And so how do you maintain that focus and that drive?
I think for me, especially with Xanadu, and it was the same with Babylon, because we were on that game for 5 years solid, and it was just initially it was just Akrima and I, and then our team maybe got up to like 4 at any one point. But I think for me, it's really about that beginning stage. Like if the idea as it germinates becomes really something that you gravitate towards and you really fall in love with and you really want it to become, then for me, that's like almost an endless amount of fuel for focus, assuming that it just keeps evolving and either getting better. And Xanadu is kind of that way. It's like I feel like I could be doing Xanadu for years and years. I have like such a huge list of like fun ideas, and I'm just starting to like tap into the top. And so I think if you have a basis that's that strong, you can just keep going until something gets in your way that you can't get past. But that's usually what I look for. Otherwise, I feel like I would never be able to be on a project for as long as I have been. So
for me, it's honestly just having people like setting a schedule for it. Like I think that's where it's been really useful for it to be working with Chromosphere and Kevin and that team, because like they have people that will remind me of when certain milestones on the schedule are, or when certain deadlines are. So like, I think at least, depending on how small your team is, like if it's just you, then you can't really necessarily like task another member of your team with like setting your schedule. So I think like, I don't know, like just in general for me, it's always like being able to have a way to set certain deadlines for stuff you might want to accomplish by a certain point. Um, because yeah, like otherwise, like for me, without any kind of schedule or any kind of deadline, like even if it's something where I'm self-imposing it, I don't do very well. Like I'll just never end up finishing things or never doing them. So I think, yeah, it's definitely just like figuring out a way to set like a schedule for yourself.
Yeah, that's what I need to learn how to do. For some reason, every time I'm like, I'm going to get this thing out in a week. I'm putting everything into doing that, and then suddenly I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. I'm just going to do this. Forget that. And so I can't seem to pull that off on my own. And Karima, when we were doing Kite and Lightning, was no better. So it took our amazing producer Jennifer to kind of like become that person for us, which is like, all right, we've got to hit this milestone.
See, yeah, it's like having a good producer. Just like one. You just need one person where like they're bugging you.
I agree.
So that's the secret, is a top-notch producer, is what we're learning.
Yeah.
Kind of on a similar vein with you guys working in small groups and stuff. Obviously, you guys have also worked on some pretty major projects throughout your career as well. So what are some of the pros and cons between working on a small team versus in maybe a larger studio or a larger team?
I can go first.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, you go. Okay, I'm going. So I feel like there's definitely freedom is probably the biggest thing that comes to mind when you're on a smaller team. There's not only just freedom creatively, but freedom to sort of like pick and choose your roles, because there's always overlap. It's like, okay, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, but then there's like all these things in between that in a bigger company would be taken care of by somebody. So you kind of have to fill those gaps within the small group. And so there's a freedom to sort of figure out what you're good at and what they're good at, even though usually those are the things that nobody's good at or wants to do. So that's kind of one of the challenges, actually, doing those ancillary jobs that need to get done that you don't want to do. But I think the trade-off is pretty cool because you can shift, you can pivot, you can evolve things, you can like chew on an idea, and actually it becomes a critical part of the project itself. The ability to execute on something that you just came up with, which I don't think, in a bigger production, I think there's, it's just a slower moving machine. It's hard to influence it onto that degree while, it's like building the plane while you're flying it versus building it properly and then taking off. Those are probably the big ones I think of.
Yeah, for me, I think it's, I'm glad you went first, because definitely the freedom thing was at the top of my mind of like what the pro is. I think like it just gets like a lot easier the less people you need to sort of like accomplish a creative vision, I think, because there's sort of like less people that you have to get where what you're imagining like in line in the same way as like the bigger you make the project, kind of like the more effort it takes to get everybody on the same page. Like I think the only con is really just like when you are at a bigger studio with like a huge team, like it's like the other side of that. It's sort of like you have plenty of people that can problem solve. You have people that can do, like you're saying, like the little jobs that like you don't typically necessarily want to do or you have to do them. Usually
Yeah.
there's somebody else that will do that one if you're on like a humongous team. And like sometimes it's just also the resources of like having somebody to quickly fix things that's their job to fix those things. Like I'm really just talking about like technical issues or things that you might run into that are like that, where like if you're at a bigger place, there's like kind of like a quicker turnaround on being able to solve things like that.
Yeah, that's very true. And one of the other cons that I just thought of while you were talking is in vein of what you were saying. Like when I was working on Babylon, even though we were small, there was a couple concept artists that I was working with, and I look forward to every morning waking up and sort of getting what they come up with, because that just like invigorated me to no end. And it was just like, oh my God, yes, I'm going to build that thing, and it's going to be, so it just triggered a lot of stuff. And so just being able to work in a bigger team with talented people is obviously something I think I miss the most, and definitely a con, because I think, great artists bring a lot to the vision itself. But like Elizabeth said, it's difficult. It's like it's a gem when you find those team members that you don't have to put a massive amount of effort into communicating. Like they get the style, they understand it, and you can do shorthand. But if it's like such a big team and you got to do these big decks and try to get them all to understand what's going on, like there's a threshold there that I feel like can really just, I don't know, really puts a hamper on things. So definitely cool to not have to face that big thing, but I definitely miss the small scale sort of artistry and working with other artists, which isn't off the table for me. I could obviously still do that with Xanadu, and I still probably will, but as of now, I'm just kind of trucking along on my own. So.
All right, good. We have some community questions sort of diving into the hardware and the technical side of things. Corey specifically, I think they're wondering what is the hardware and Facecam and your setup that you use for capture in Xanadu, if you're willing to share.
Yeah, sure. And it's all fairly simple stuff. I'm using an Xsens link suit for body capture. I'm using just an iPhone 12. I bounce between a 11 and 12 mini. And for face capture, I'm using your guys' the Epic Live Link face software for the actual face capture, which just goes right into Unreal. And I have a standard deviation helmet, which I love to death. It's the best purchase I've ever made. And I'm using Manus gloves for the hand capture. So that's the core of the hardware. Then I just have a fairly standard PC that I capture into. And then for my daily work, I just have a fairly standard PC with a NVIDIA 3090 card, which is definitely the other amazing purchase I made, because Xanadu has a lot of high-res textures, and that extra 24 gigs of card memory is really gold. So
it's huge.
Huge.
On that, those are, for some of those that are getting started, maybe that's a little bit out of their budget. What are the things you feel like is worth splurging on, or do you have some recommendations for folks that are trying to do a more budget-friendly approach to, or just getting into mocap?
Yeah, that's very true. All the stuff I have is super expensive. I'd say the real key to all of this stuff, in my opinion, is sort of like in the character, in the story. And I think it doesn't take a lot to bring a character to life in general. And that's where I would just focus. Like there's a lot of like webcam body capture stuff. I think most people can get their hands on a phone. And so you could use the same stuff that I use. I think it's really just about, it's not about the fully polished stuff that a lot of the expensive gear gets you. It's just about getting in, learning the engine, figuring out how to bring a character to life, even lo-fi style. You can make amazing stuff. You can stylize stuff and just have fun with it. And then once you get that ball rolling, I think you'll know like what's most important. Like, do I need to level up on the face stuff? Do I really want or need that level of body quality? Because there's actually more and more like new technologies happening with body capture, where it's you can just do it, like I said, with webcams. You can download it from the cloud and sort of start there. And I think it'll be relatively cheap just to get going, but that's where I would start.
Great advice. Just start. Sometimes the
Just
biggest
start.
hurdle. It's like, yeah, open it up, open
Definitely.
those tutorials, start playing with something. Absolutely. Uh,
Yeah.
there's a question for Elizabeth, and they're wondering what would you say was the hardest part in transitioning to Unreal Engine, and they're wondering if you found it easier to find what you wanted compared to previous experiences in animation. And by the way, they love City of Ghosts and Welcome to My Life.
Oh, thank you. Um, it was really tough for me. I mean, I think just because it made me sort of feel like one thing that I talked a bit about with some of my Chromosphere friends was just it kind of made me regret not playing more video games because I was like talking to somebody who was just saying, "Oh yeah, the controls will be really intuitive, probably if you've played this thing or this thing." And I was like, well, like my son is playing that, but like I don't play that. And then I just thought, man, like this is giving me, like, I was describing it like this is so silly, but like early Halo vibes when I tried to play with my brother and he was really good at it. I mean, compared to me, he was really good at it. I don't know, like in the spectrum of Halo, if he was really good at it. But I remember just sort of like I kept ending up like looking at the ceiling. And I was like, I wish I had done more homework on that front. The thing that I did find like just really cool was just being able to, like, once I got the hang of it a little bit, like being able to fly around this environment that was being built of this mall, and kind of just thinking like, this is so cool. Like maybe I'll never have to draw another background in a storyboard again if I can manage to learn how to use this wisely. So yeah, I think it's been cool, just for me to like imagine a scenario where I get really good at navigating it and can kind of like, yeah, utilize that.
That's awesome.
Let's see. Tina, you got one? Nope,
Yeah,
you're
I've
on
got one
spot.
actually for you guys. I'm curious between just in the development of these projects and stuff, is there any moment that stands out to either of you that seemed like a moment of accomplishment, just something that really stood out as something you're very proud of? It could even be something that you overcame, just a particular moment that stands out to you. It's a heavy question, so.
I'm gonna let Elizabeth go first.
I mean, one thing, I don't know if this is like something that I necessarily like overcame. It's just something that like I'm excited about, and I'm excited that it's probably conceivable using Unreal. Just the idea that we're exploring this thing where there might be an opportunity to kind of like, it's not only like creating this short, but like the hope is that how cool would it be if you could create a short in this environment where you could also make the environment something that you could explore in like VR, or you could make a game out of it, or you could just make it something where somebody could sit in the middle of this mall with these characters walking around, and like walk around and find stories within that space. So like just all the things that we're kind of creatively doing to like expand the idea of like how all these things could be connected is something that I think is really nice to see, that to feel that it's possible, and to kind of see that like, oh, it is really possible, and it is really cool that this tool makes it a lot more possible.
Yeah, definitely. I think probably the biggest thing for me that was from an accomplishment standpoint, just a hell of a good feeling, was, when we started to create Babylon, the game, Cream and I just kind of moved to Paris for a year to just, separate from reality and just kind of focus on this. It seemed like a fun thing to do. And in that process, I had like, imagine months and months with checking email maybe like every couple of weeks, no phone calls, no meetings, none of these things. And so you're just waking up every day, getting your croissant and your latte. And in that process, that's when I was sort of coming up with the story world and the characters and all of that. And somehow there's this point where I just struck this well of just ideas started flooding in, and I couldn't write them or sketch them fast enough. And that time was such a wonderful experience because I didn't know what was going to happen. And when it does, it's just like amazing because it's not just ideas, it's like all coherent, like cool ideas from my perspective. And so that I was pretty stoked that I discovered that because I felt like, all right, I'm going to take this into the future, and I always want to try to replicate this process, because there's like this gold mine down in the depths somehow. Of course, I haven't been able to replicate or going back to Paris and all that stuff, but that was a pretty monumental moment for me creatively, I think. And
Very cool.
the most recently, I have to say, the latest episode that I've been working on for way too long, but it's probably one of the most exciting, very rarely am I loving what I'm doing. For some reason, as artists, you just constantly your own worst critic,
Crux
And
of the
I'm
artist
really
for sure.
bad at that. I look at everything I do, I'm like, this sucks. And even during the roller coaster of making stuff, there's mornings where I'm like, yes, this is amazing. And then the next day I'm like, this is a total piece of crap. And usually that's how it kind of goes. This latest one, not that there's a lot of room for improvement in my weak spots, but it's the best thing I've ever made. I'm very proud of it and very excited to get it out there. So this one's been really fun and a huge learning experience because, doing things that you don't normally do or you're not good at, like performances and trying to tell stories. Storytelling, I feel like, is really hard. And one of the things I'm in awe of Elizabeth for, because she has a knack for being able to tell stories and bring her characters to life in a really awesome way. And it's hard
Oh, man,
to do.
thanks.
And, so I'm kind of getting there enough to where I don't hate with that part of it. And I really love all the technical stuff too. So that's my latest exciting sort of moment.
I think
That's
it evens
fantastic.
out because I'm bad at everything on the other side of it. Like I'm good at the storytelling part, and everything else is a mess.
Yeah, we're both two ends of the spectrum, trying to sort of get to the other side. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait till we see the mall characters visit Xanadu or visit Blue in Xanadu. So maybe he'll go to
Oh,
the
yeah.
mall.
That'd be awesome.
That would be
Yeah.
freaking super awesome. I'd love that.
Kind of on that note, they're wondering if you see Blue expanding beyond, do you see him going to a real-time platform like Twitch or streaming in their universe?
Definitely streaming is high on my list. I think for the most part, my entire setup right now is streamable. Like I can stream technically. The big challenge I think that I face is really just one thing, and it's like the XN suit, which I love to death. It has the real time sort of data that you capture, and then really you put it through the post process afterwards, and that's what it gets it to this really high sort of optical quality. And that's what I rely on for Blue in his world, because it's trying to be cinematic and keep it to a certain level. So the real-time data is really the hindrance for me for live streaming him, just because it's not quite at the level that I want it to be. If I had an optical stage at home, which is very difficult to have because it's super expensive and you need a lot of room for it, that's when I would be able to. So I think this year that's my goal, is to get him streamable. Not that I'm going to make him streamable in terms of content from then on out, but I want to have streamable episodes every now and then where the audience can interact. I definitely want to bring in VR, because there's a lot of stuff that Akrima and I had worked on for Babylon that we could apply to Xanadu, where people could kind of come into an episode while it's happening, or a section of an episode that's live. and interact and be a part of the whole thing. So that whole genre of stuff, kind of similar to what Elizabeth was talking about with sort of like what other things can we do now that we've got this powerful sort of world and tool. Unreal is just unlimited. Like everywhere you look, there's like a new, expansion that you could do on your project. And so I'm very excited to kind of dig into that stuff. This probably later this year. Right now, I'm just trying to figure out what the heck Xanadu is, who Blue is, and sort of the story part of it, and then I'm going to kind of branch out from there.
Very cool. Oops, excuse me. They're wondering, actually, how often do either of you use the marketplace for your sets or projects, or as a foundation for anything?
Ooh, I'm curious what Elizabeth's answer is on this one.
I don't know if we used it for much for the mall stories because we had some really specific things, but I could be corrected on Chromosphere later, but yeah, not too much.
Yeah, that makes sense because your world is very, very stylized and specific. That was similar to Babylon. Like, I don't think we were able to use many marketplace assets for that because it was so specific in what the world was. For Xanadu, however, I use the marketplace a ton because it's when you're a one-man band, you can't. Modeling is just a slow process, and I try to avoid it at all costs. So if I can find it on the marketplace, I'm super happy, and it's definitely given Blue an expanded world because it's like, you need a jungle scene with dinosaurs. You just download it, and there's so many amazing assets on there. And even a lot of the character, like I have a new bad guy in this next episode who was derived from a marketplace asset. You always have to mod the crap out of these things because sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not, and you never really know until you get it. But usually when it comes to environments and props, I definitely try marketplace first. If I can't find it, then I'll just bite the bullet and kind of make it.
That's great. Yeah, I know a lot of folks, you can find at least the base or have an inspiration, and then you can modify it to make sure it fits the style of your scene, or if it takes minor adjustments, maybe to get it working within the the way you need it to. But instead of building all that from scratch, it's right there and available for you. So
yeah, it's a huge resource for what I'm doing, definitely.
Yeah. On a kind of similar note to that, I'm curious, and the chat brought up as well, how much of using Unreal would you quantify as art, and how much would you say is more on the kind of science-y technical side? Coming in with these hard questions.
Yeah.
I like this question. It's a really
Corey
good question.
can.
I'll take a crack at it, but I'm actually really curious about what your answer is going to be. I think that what Unreal does is give you the ability, I don't say easier, in a sense, a more powerful ability to realize your art in a sense. When I think about like filmmakers, for example, you look at the constraints of reality when you're a DP and you're lighting and you're moving cameras. You look at the costs of sets and building things. And when I think about the virtual world and what Unreal provides, in a way, it's just it's a powerful way to create art that for small teams and small people that would never be able to afford to build a set, would never even have the equipment to light a scene, or So in a way, it's highly technical stuff, but so is most modern art, right? And I'm using film as an example because that's the thing I most relate to for me. But I think in all art, you can find somehow there's a technical component to it. It's like the marriage of the two. I think that is amazing. So for me, I don't think it's any more or less than any other than doing it outside of Unreal. I think it's just it gives smaller groups or individuals like the ability to express themselves and really it should be, the art should be the focus. I think when that's driving you, the technical stuff is just always in support of the art. And again, Unreal is like amazing because it's like there's no real boundaries there. You can just keep kind of realizing stuff as long as you can think about it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like honestly, it's probably really simple for me to answer. The more that I thought about it, as somebody kind of who just has been in animation for long enough to kind of see there just be, it's like when I was just coming out of school, I feel like it was mostly CG animation by that point. Um, and like also there was a transition of people drawing their storyboards on actual paper versus like drawing it on in a Cintiq. And I think this is like the same. It's like a technical tool for making art. Like I don't see it as being purely technical because there's just so many things like animation wise that you can experiment with within this cool tool, and like just stuff that bridges also like the way of making like art in film versus like making kind of like a game that's a different type of story and art and stuff like that. And yeah, I think I see it as being like technical stuff in the service of making creative things.
Let's see. What do you feel like is the next step for your projects? Like, where do you want to take them next? I know Mall Stories isn't quite out yet, so maybe it's getting to there. But knowing what you've worked on or what you're working on now, like, where would you like to explore technologically, either with your current project or whatever may come next?
I mean, I think for Mall Stories, I'm excited to like like look towards kind of trying out things that aren't necessarily only like making a short that uses this environment that we've built. It would be cool to do other shorts that were, there could be other stories of businesses in the mall or just people in the mall. But I think also exploring like I would be really eager to explore it as almost sort of like a combination of like VR and games and film stuff, where it's like you create this place that you can navigate differently than you might navigate on Netflix to find things to watch, where you could actually like be in a space and discover these stories that you want to hear or be a part of.
How about you, Corey?
That's awesome. I think, I definitely talked already a little bit about the idea of bringing Xanadu into a streaming realm. For me, that the holy grail of where I'm heading or want to head is, in a sense, into the proverbial metaverse where, Blue can exist in real time and other people can be in the same space virtually in VR. And we could basically do virtual production in that space. Like that is the dream for me is to essentially the only hang up right now is being able to put on the headset and still be able to capture your face. Because if I was able to do that, then I could actually be in the ship as Blue and kind of do the whole production that way. And that would be not only super fun, but in the process of that, you're just now living in this ship and you're doing production in the ship. And then other virtual people could come in and that guy can, be a character in the story. That guy could be the director. And the way creating in that space, I feel like would be super, super fun and amazing. Or even just create that, just being in that space and filming it is kind of like a sort of a metaverse experience. But that's sort of what I'm hoping to evolve towards. And there's a few things in the works right now in terms of being able to put Blue in a ship into a space that other people can come and hang out in real time in VR. Obviously with the caveat of like face capture and some technical things, but I think that's going to be the big push for the next year. which is also tied into the streaming and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. What I think the idea of having Blue actually doing the production work is just absolutely wild, right? It's like you're really
Right? You
taking
see
it to
him
the next
walking
step of
around,
people
and
joining in, and yeah,
yeah, it would be so awesome. And really, it's like this. It's really the only hang up is that one thing, and then you being able to network in other people. But there's platforms that are emerging that are going to allow you to do that. In fact, one really cool tool that's coming out eventually. It's a Unreal plugin, or it's a whole platform really. But the guys at Evil Eye Pictures, they're making a platform called Future Stage, which is like lets you do right now. It lets you do face capture remotely with other teams. It literally looks just like this, like the four of us, but instead of streaming our video through our webcam, we're streaming our iPhone video and onto our characters, and we could basically almost have what I was just describing, but we're doing it remotely in this way. So in this latest episode, I'm working with Teflon Sega. He's a really cool musician, metaverse, true-born metaverse character. And the idea of being able for us to interact live versus the way I was doing it in this last episode, offline in a sense, is very exciting to me because I think you can get really authentic, truer performances like you would on set between the characters. So those kinds of things I think are emerging that are going to start allowing, people to co-create together in this sort of virtual space. So I'm excited about that stuff.
that's very cool, and cannot wait to see what comes out of that.
Seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe we featured Teflon Sega on a community spotlight within, I don't know, the last couple of months, and yeah, they have such a cool channel, and it's a cool scene, so really excited to see the collaboration and what happens there.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. That's one of the things I cherish about this last episode is that he's in it. He's super cool dude, super talented, and it's just fun having like a metaverse friend, like another dude that's doing similar stuff, and we talk and geek out, and it's just like, where can we take this? It's pretty cool. I'm ultimately envisioning building the Guardians of the Metaverse kind of little band of misfits, misfit metaverse people that we can kind of bounce around the galaxy and go on adventures and stuff. So that's again the inner 12-year-old in me sort of driving the ship right now. So we'll see how long that lasts.
I love that. I love that. I was going to say, actually, the whole setup you have for Xanadu right now is very reminiscent of Guardians of the Galaxy. You get very strong, similar vibes there.
Yeah, big obvious inspiration. I'm a big fan of James Gunn. He's freaking master, man. If I could ever get to tell stories on the level that he does, or write at the level he does, I'll be satisfied in life. But it's a long road, I think.
Baby steps. You're close.
Don't catch yourself.
Baby steps.
He baby dances, baby brawls.
That's right.
No.
That's right.
I have a selfish question for you guys. Chat didn't ask for this. I'm just asking it because I'm curious. But obviously, you guys, your art styles for your projects are vastly different from one another. Elizabeth, yours is super adorable, very stylized. Just, it's so cute. It makes me just want to, I just feel so warm and fuzzy watching it. And then Corey's, your stuff is like semi-realism to realism. Still very bright colors and all that going on. But I was curious what led you to those specific styles that you picked.
Yeah, I'm really curious on Elizabeth's because I agree with you. You nailed it. It's like you feel all warm and fuzzy when you watch her content, and it's just like, how does she do that? It's like, it's like this simple. Like to me, that's great art when you can strip it down to the core essence of just what an environment needs to be or what a character needs to have around them to tell the story. She does it in this soft and fuzzy way. So yeah,
Thanks so
you
much.
go first.
I mean, I think I've just always been inspired by things that, like, once I name them, people are always like, "Oh yeah, like of course." Like, First thing is like Muppets, you know, like I've always really liked the way, like both that Muppets look and kind of the ingenuity of what Muppets are. Like, I mean, I remember it wasn't even that long ago. I want to say it was like 5 years ago. I thought about how like the Muppets are really just somebody's hand, that somebody is moving in this way that makes you think it's a real thing you're talking to. And I just like it's just it's like amazing, you know. And I think like I've always been inspired by that, like being able to sort of imbue something cute and really simple with like a personality. So I think a lot of the stuff that I do is also inspired by like really cute Japanese characters. I definitely was like really into all sorts of Nintendo games that look like the things that my characters kind of look like. So yeah, it's all just very like just things from my childhood and things that I still love now, that I kind of, my stuff always ends up looking like that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's photoreal or trying to head towards photoreal. It's just not really that conscious of a thought. Now that I think about it, I feel like I've just been inspired as a kid by movies like Star Wars and Star Trek, and it's just the idea of it being real to me. On that sense, I think is kind of been the driving force. Akrima will attest to this because over the years, we've talked a lot about stylizing things, and I always just gravitate towards a realistic somehow some version of it. Maybe because it's easier, right? It's like there's reality, you can replicate it, and so we've had this discussion over a lot, and I've always been averse to doing stylized stuff. I love stylized things, but in terms of actually creating stylized stuff, I feel like it's a void for me. Like I don't know what, I don't have that thing inside me that draws me to create it. So reality or close to reality is sort of like the next best thing, I think.
Can't wait to see a Muppet version of Blue.
That
I think that's where we should go.
would be awesome, right? I could see an episode, Blue pulls something out of the box and it turns him into a Muppet. That would be awesome.
Oh man.
But no, yeah, I think I hear where you're coming from though, because it's like when you're trying to build something, like you're creating another world, and if you can make it look and feel realistic, even if like Blue isn't somebody that exists on Earth that we know of, and like trying to trick us into believing that like this is a reality where they could be, right? It's something that could be
Right.
here in this new space where it's like you can absolutely get totally invested in all kinds of stylized worlds and immersed in them. And so I definitely don't want to give that a pitch. Like obviously we're all talking about how we get all the warm and fuzzies and get all that excitement from all stories. But I think that's kind of the different is one is taking you away from here and one is sort of changing the reality that exists. And so just sort of different approaches to that process, but that's really, really cool.
Yeah, that's true. It really like the style itself is what orients you to the how you relate to it, right? Like if it's a cartoon or if it's a stylized world, your expectations change right away. Whereas if it's like a realistic world, then your expectations are a bit geared towards interpreting the laws of that world based on what we know of reality, and it's more familiar. Whereas I think stylized is fun because you have to learn a little. You can't trust like, oh, there's gonna be gravity or there's gonna be all these sort of natural laws that apply. It's more of a freer form space, I think. So
Yeah. On that note, I don't think we ever circled back around, Elizabeth. What was your inspiration for Mall Stories?
Oh, I think part of it was that at the beginning of pandemic, I watched this documentary called Jasper Mall, where it's a documentary about a dying mall, shopping mall, or where there's pretty much just like one guy who manages taking care of them all. And it was like actually this really calming, peaceful thing to watch. And it really just got me thinking about like how many memories I have, for better or for worse, that are from the shopping mall, are just fond memories of like honestly, like most people around the same age as me, when I talked to them about the mall, it was kind of like this weird place where your parents, I think, felt safe, like letting you roam around, but you had a certain amount of freedom, like from being right next to them. You didn't necessarily always have to be beside them when you were at the mall. So, like, yeah, I think I just thought, oh, it'd be so cool to do a project about that, about like things that happen in shopping malls. And yeah, and it was definitely just like I had mentioned it to Kevin, and he was like, you should like try to make a short out of that, and we should see if we can like make that an Unreal project. It'd be really cool to try to figure it out. So yeah, it was definitely just having fond memories of the mall.
It's awesome. It is a throwback, but it is funny how nostalgic. It's just like, oh yes, I understand we're gonna hang out at the mall. There's gonna hopefully see some friends and
Yeah, for sure.
all
Man, I
kinds of
haven't thought
different
about the
people.
mall in so many years, but like you said, I have like infinite amount of memories of all the malls where I grew up. It's crazy. And Epic is you guys like bought a
Yeah.
mall, right? To build
Yes,
the new headquarters. It's very cool.
but I think that's a case of the dying mall, and
Right.
yeah, that it is no longer going to be a mall.
Yeah, story with a
um,
different ending for sure.
oh yeah. um, having been this one's a little more geared towards you, Corey. Having used Unreal for a while, what changes have you seen in both UE's tools and in the industry, particularly around virtual production? It's a more recent emergence, especially with the last couple of years. And where do you think we're going?
Um, on the virtual production front,
Mhm.
um, let's see. Well, I've been very grateful that Epic's embraced virtual production because obviously it's at the core of what I'm doing right now. Not building games in Unreal, even though it's going to be awesome to start to incorporate some of that interactivity into what I'm doing down the road. Um, but just the fact that you guys have embraced it is amazing. I think that like the funny thing about Unreal, this is like the first piece of software that's always been ahead of me. And we used to joke about it making Babylon. It's like the engines were coming out so fast and with so many new features that we were like having a hard time keeping up with all the new cool stuff. So that's just been a blessing. The fact that there's lots of iterations and you guys are really fast to adjust and make fix things and or add on things that become new in the moment. Obviously, the LED stage stuff is really new and being utilized a lot. A lot of the motion capture stuff is being more readily available, and so the way you guys have been integrating all that has grown a bunch. Control rig animating in there, Alembic support. There's just a lot of things that I feel like I hear industry people like when it's industry people that are feeding it, and that's what you guys are developing for, then they're the right tools. And so I've been reaping the benefits a lot. It's hard to say where it's all sort of going. Honestly, there's a big convergence between like filmmaking, game making, and hybrids of things in between. I definitely think it's an obvious insight that like all visual industries are eventually going to be going real time. I still do freelance work every once in a while, and I use Unreal, whereas I used to use Maya. And to even just do broadcast graphics or things like that, it's a really powerful tool. And just the stuff is there, whether it came from games, whether it came from virtual production, like the tool sets from all these different disciplines are kind of ending up in the engine. And together, it's like, oh, you can do new things now that those are combined. And it kind of opens up new doors. So it'll be interesting to see as everything comes towards real time from different industries and those different tool sets. There's going to be things people never thought of that you could do once these things are combined. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future. It's kind of hard to say actually where it's all heading. Definitely virtual, way far enough down the road, right? I mean, even real like live action, as sad as it may be for a lot of people, I feel like will eventually be very, like captured in a strange way and and then all digitized, and all the camera work, all the lighting, like a lot of stuff that's now done on set will all be done in real time, more or less in an engine. And for better or for worse, I think it's pretty exciting and cool.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things I find so fascinating, I've said this before, but it is the convergence of those industries, right? It's the idea that you have, filmmakers can bring their workflows and their techniques to game devs to help shape how they tell their stories. And the game devs, have the experience building interactive experiences that they can then share. It's like, oh, this is what makes for a good like input, or makes for, getting that, you're shifting them from a viewer to a participant, and, how does that affect? And then if we have architects and folks coming in, then they understand buildings and design in a way that maybe the game devs don't. And so I think the knowledge exchange that happens here just hopefully lifts everyone up and makes everyone's content that much more powerful and impactful. So
absolutely. And even, you guys are a good example of giving out presets, whether it's like game stuff or lighting from amazing DPs for the film people, just that cross knowledge and sort of sharing of assets means that people in the game world can suddenly access, the mind of a filmmaker and some presets that they made. And I think it's all gonna, like you said, level up everybody's work, because it's hard to be good at all those different things. And so you kind of rely on, or will more rely on, that convergence happening.
I'm going to bring it back to, do you have something, Tina?
Yeah, there was a question that popped up in chat that I thought was interesting. It's for Elizabeth. They're wondering if you use any motion capture for your animation as well, or if that's all just animation tools.
Yeah, no, we didn't use any motion capture. I think I think the animation was done in Maya. So.
There you have it, folks.
There you have it.
I was wondering, what are some of the most helpful tricks you found? Do you have any pieces of advice for using Unreal Engine as a small group or as a solo dev? Anything that's helped you out, knowing that you don't have infinite resources or major teams to support you?
Specific to small teams, I would say for me, I mean, there's little things that kind of crop up, because like when you're doing mocap, for example, as one person, that's usually not the case. There's usually like a TD and other people that run all the gear. So I got this amazing little, like, it's like this big, it's a keyboard and a little mouse pad that I Velcro to my suit. And it lets me like basically do the work of those guys without having to stop what I'm doing, go over to the computer and actually run the capture process. So that's like, when you go into a bar and there's like one guy who's got the pedal on the drums playing the guitar and there's some banjo on his back kind of a thing. That's what I feel like when I'm mocapping, because I'm like, Jesus, if I only had a couple of people to help me, it would be a lot easier. But you sort of find these little things that kind of get you through it. So that little keyboard is worth its weight in gold, I think. So that's one little hack.
Love that. That's a great note. It's you have to improvise, right? There's always a way to work around it, or almost always a way to work around your obstacles, but it's finding the best way that works for you and your solution. So like, yeah, I love that it's as simple as, well, I don't want to walk over to my computer all the time, so I've just literally strapped a keyboard to my wrist.
Yeah, and you can't because like with the way XSense is set up, you want to center yourself at 000 in world space where sort of like you are in your stage. So if I'm standing there, I can't literally reach to the computer anyway. So it kind of is an odd necessity that you have to be able to trigger this stuff. And you guys have in the app, I think, ways to trigger it as well, but I haven't dug into it. So you might be able to just do it through the phone, which is what I used to do when I was building my own face capture app. I had it so that I could do it all through the phone, but it's way more flexible, I think, because then I could even like name clips and do other stuff that I couldn't do otherwise. But yeah, it's very, you kind of figure these things out as you go based on necessity, like you said.
I think my
That's
only
clever.
tip is just staying well connected with the team, and like if you have questions or things that pop up, that it's easy, going both ways, to be able to communicate with somebody like, hey, I'm having this issue, or um, like somebody will help you solve something, that might be like, sometimes you just run into those things where it seems like a small problem and it's frustrating and you can't figure it out, and then somebody else just has a quick fix. So I think when you're like, we stay connected pretty much on Slack, but I think like there's also just other, it's not only Slack, it's just whatever tool is convenient for your team to be on, to just be able to have that quick back and forth.
Do you guys have like weekly meetings, like a regular sort of thing also?
Yeah, usually like once a week we have something where, everybody who's current on the project gets together, yeah, to chat about just that, where you can, um, say any issues, or even just like things that, like for me, like that I need to review and like give people feedback on and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's what we were doing too. It helped a lot.
We want to know what. I know we kind of touched on this earlier and encouraged folks to just start something, but if they're wanting to dig in, where would you send them first? What would you say if it's like if somebody's like, "Hey, I want to do this today," where would you point them, or what would be the first thing you'd have them do?
For me, I would just point them to your guys' site and to the sample projects. I think depending on which direction you want to go, there's a lot of amazing sample projects. And for me personally, that's how I've learned the most, is just dissecting stuff. So if you see something that you like, if it's whether it's the face capture, the Kite Boy stuff, and myriad of other things, or even just any of the projects that are on there, download it, download Unreal, obviously, download these projects and just check it out, fly around, experiment, look at, how they're lighting the scene, if that's what you're into, how are they animating it, dig into the animation blueprints. Like that's how I like to learn. And then obviously, I think once you get past the basics, it's really all about creating a little, like one of the things I would advocate for always is not just learning for learning's sake after you get past the beginning. It's kind of create some kind of small containable project, like, oh, I just want to make a character and have a scene cut back and forth, and just focus on figuring out what you need to learn to do that scene, and then make a little bit of a bigger scene and learn what you need to do as it comes up. Like, okay, now I'm stuck, I want to do this, how do I do this? Like to me, I think it's a better process of learning versus just going through endless amounts of tutorials trying to learn all the features of the engine. Like I would focus it on the end project and keep it small.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
for
great
me,
advice.
I was just gonna say, like, download the program, see how it works, if it works on your computer, and that's like really honestly like the very first thing you can do, because you're like, honestly, like you're probably gonna run into some things where you might have to troubleshoot something before you can even do anything. And I think it's just like, once you have it to work with, then it's just a matter of like, yeah, exactly, like having an idea for a project and seeing what things do I need to know how to do in here in order to even just get started on that. And like, yeah, just try it out. Like the worst that could happen is like you get you get some kind of errors or it won't do something. But best case scenario, you just start kind of like learning these new skills.
Yeah, and there's something about spinning around in real time if you haven't done it before. Obviously, when you play games, you're running around in a real time world, but it's different when you're in the creative behind the scenes realm of the engine and the editor. So I think just finding a cool project and just flying around in it gets you pretty pumped up as to like, wow, I can grab this building and move it. Oh, I can, it's because it's super intuitive and easy to sort of like do scenes and change lighting, and those creative sort of juices start to flow. And I think that's probably a good place to get going, because once you get that excitement, then I think it helps you overcome some of the hurdles that are definitely going to be along the way. So
Yeah, having a tangible goal or objective helps, right? So much that it's like, okay, I'm going to do that, and you can work on focusing on the problems related to that and figuring out how that thing works and build. So absolutely. Kind of on that note, they're wondering, what is one of the hardest obstacles that you faced in your development so far? Ooh, I know, tough ones. The chat's coming out with the heavy hitters.
Yeah, honestly, mine was just like getting to do what I just said, where it was like trying it out for the first time, and making a ton of just asking a ton of not that smart questions, to people, and just being okay with that. So I think, yeah, the biggest hurdle was just like learning how to do anything.
Yeah. I mean, that's true for me too. I think it's hard. I mean, there's always hurdles along the way, no matter how long you've been using the engine or how good at it you are. There's always new things that you just have to wrangle. So it's hard to pick, in a sense, one out of that. But early on, yeah, it was challenging for me to go from coding interactivity to blueprints. So that was something I had to kind of like, because it was, in a sense, it seemed like a slower process, but now I absolutely love it. I'm very, it makes things easier, put it that way. So that was a bit of a thing, a tough thing for me to sort of adapt to in the early days. But yeah, I don't know that one thing stands out as like the biggest challenge.
All right. Well, awesome. All right, I have a softball question. Where will folks be able to watch Mall Stories?
I don't know yet.
Oh, it's
to be
a
totally
softball
honest,
question.
I'm not.
You lied. This isn't softball at all.
Oh no.
I think we're still trying to figure out like what to do when we're done. We know when we want to finish it. I think we're still sort of trying to plot out like, okay, then what do we do after it's complete? Like, but yeah, I'm just really stoked for people to be able to see it wherever that's going to be. Yeah. Sorry,
So
I don't have an answer.
Best place for them to find out where they'll be able to watch it in the future.
Oh yeah,
would
like
be...
keep first, like, I guess keep checking in with like my Twitter and Chromosphere's Twitter, and on Instagram too. We're usually pretty good about posting before things come out, like where and how you can see them.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Sure.
And then Corey, I feel like the best place for folks to keep an eye on is your YouTube channel, or Xanadu's YouTube channel.
Yep, that's pretty much where everything's heading. And I'm slowly getting my social media, even though I do this. So my Twitter, doing more on Twitter and Instagram, but those are probably the two big socials, and then YouTube for sure.
Awesome. Well, is there anything you'd like to leave chat with? It has been an absolute treat chatting with both of you today.
Likewise, it's been so nice. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, definitely agree. It was super fun, and yeah, appreciate the conversation. I don't think I have anything else that I can think of. I'm very excited to actually. There's a bunch of virtual production week content that have been stacking up this week that I'm excited to look at myself. So kudos to you guys. More virtual production week stuff. It's very beneficial, I think, to all of us.
Well, that's a great plug. Again, it is Virtual Production Week. Tons of awesome content from loads of our partners. They are so incredible. Please go make sure to check out those projects. A lot of the videos are on our YouTube channel, or there's the Virtual Production Week Hub at unrealengine.com/VP-week. So I want to say thank you both again for joining us and taking the time to hang out and chat. It's really fascinating to hear your stories, and vastly different journeys, but like you're both storytellers in your own paths, right? And it's cool to see how you emerge and bring what's unique to you and your core and what's important to you, or just exciting to you to share with a larger audience. So really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Thank you.
Absolutely, definitely. Thank you, guys.
For the folks at home, please join us next week. We'll be here again streaming Thursdays at 2 p.m. Follow us on all the things social, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, / or at Unreal Engine. Check out if you have questions, general activities in the forums. You'll find out all kinds of people. We just migrated all kinds of Answer Hub data back in, so please check that out. Let us know the flow. We've added knowledge base articles from UDN, and we're really excited about that. So if you have feedback for us, please toss that in there. That's we're keeping an eye on all that. So we always appreciate your input on those changes. And yeah, we always appreciate you all showing up every week and hanging out with us and asking loads of amazing questions. So yep, have a fantastic week, and thank you to everyone for showing up today.
Cool. See ya.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.